Hello, and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. It's Bailey, and I hope you're having a great Wednesday or whenever you're listening to today's episode. Today, we are talking about summertime meals. I want to talk about food in the summer because I know for me, it's been kind of funky. I'm not going to lie. My eating has been a lot different, which I notice actually happens a lot in the change of seasons. So I'm going to touch on briefly why that is, right? Especially if you live in an area where you experience all the seasons. Being in Nebraska, we definitely do. We've got fall, winter, spring, and summer, and my eating around each season always looks a little differently. So I'm going to touch on that, why that is, or why I believe that is, I've learned through getting certified in holistic and integrative health coaching is really that seasonal style of eating. And I love seasonal eating. I think it's so fun. That's why if you go to the grocery store and foods are a lot cheaper, or fresh fruits or vegetables are cheaper, it's because they're in season. So we're going to get into all of that. I'm also going to give you 4 or 5 recipes to leave with that are ones that you could add in as a snack or add in as a meal. I'm giving 2 snack examples, 2 meal examples, and then 1 that could be either. So I'm really excited to share that. I won't be posting the recipes anywhere, which I know might seem kind of weird to listen to a podcast episode and then expect to know what you're supposed to do. But I'm going to give you the ingredients breakdown. We're going to deep dive into it. You can write that all down. It's not really going to be too specific because I'm personally not one that measures. I'm not very particular when it comes to cooking. And so most of the things that I'm going to talk about, it encourages you to be creative. And what I do with every client is I just encourage them to be creative. Get creative with what you're making. Make eating an experience, even when you're not hungry in those warmer months where you don't feel like breaking your work outside to go eat. These are things you can make ahead of time or you can make pretty quickly during the week or weekend. Okay, but before we get into that, there's a couple things I wanted to mention. July 21st is the last day to sign up to get a $100 gift card to the grocery store of your choice. To get entered into that, all you have to do is leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I wanted to mention you do not need to pay for Apple Music in order to get onto Apple Podcasts. So you can open the app, even if you don't listen on there, write a little fancy review, send it over to me, and then you'll get entered. I love reading those reviews. Again, it just helps with the podcast to get some more reach, or, even if you just send this episode to somebody else, that always means so much to me. So, jumping into a little bit of a catch up for this week, there's honestly not too much to catch up on. There is something that I haven't avoided talking about, but I haven't mentioned. You know me, I'm typically going to talk about something related to our farm, or the Farm Chronicles is what I've started kind of referencing it as. But this last week-ish, when we got back from Jackson, my friend Emily and Luke, they stayed at our house. My friends, Emily and Luke. Luke is Emily's husband. But they stayed at our house from Saturday to Sunday. But I was so excited to show them my garden, go out there. I have raised beds this year. My dad made me. They're awesome. It's made controlling the weeds so much easier. And we went out there and everything was basically dead. And it's not because it wasn't watered, but the unfortunate part about where we live is we've got fields all around us. So corn and soybeans. Well, farmers spray chemicals on those fields to help with weed control and bug control. And so those chemicals, dicamba is the one that killed most of my garden. That can travel for up to 2 miles. Is what I've heard. It can travel up to 2 miles and be airborne. And that can happen for multiple days even after they've been done spraying. And it's really hard. I shouldn't say hard. It's just really difficult because my dad's a farmer. I 100% understand that they have to do what they have to do because they are dealing with a much larger they're growing at a much larger scale than I'm growing my garden, right? My garden to them really doesn't mean a whole lot because it's just a garden, I don't sell produce. It's just for my own enjoyment. But that was really, really frustrating for me. And I was having a little spiral moment that day. They had left then on Sunday. I let myself have a little bit of a mental breakdown. And then I was like, it's fine. It's fine. And maybe I shared this on last week's podcast. I can't remember if I mentioned or even talked about it in depth. But that is kind of what happened. Again, it's not a huge deal, but it was very frustrating because I've put a lot of work into it and I just love gardening. And so to go out there and have a lot of it be dead was really frustrating for me. So I had that little mental breakdown, and then I'm like regrouped. I'm like, we're going to go to Walmart and we're going to get all the plants that they have left. So then closer to the house, because farmers should be done spraying now, it shouldn't be happening anymore. They can only spray to a certain part of the season, or I think certain height of the corn. And so corn or soybeans. And so we went and I got 3 tomato plants and 2 pepper plants and some eggplant. And I still have cucumbers growing in my garden. I have kale. My potatoes look terrible. My onions look terrible, but they're still kind of growing. And my beets and carrots are still fine. So not everything is dead, but in my mind, I'm like, everything is dead. This is just a fail. So that was a really frustrating moment, but we regrouped and I'm feeling a lot better this week with where things are at. This is so fun, which is also so weird because I've been talking about the flowers that I'm growing at a pretty large scale. I have sunflowers, marigolds, cosmos, zinnias, some eucalyptus, just different varieties, dahlias, and all of those were fine. So I'm realizing that flowers are a lot hardier than I thought they were. But I'm doing my second round of sunflowers, planting those. I got some dahlia tubers, which I know it's pretty late in the season to be planting those, but they were like $1 a bag, which the dahlias that I bought, I spent $40 on 5 tubers, which if you know nothing about flowers, a tuber is what you plant in the ground. That's what the dahlia then grows from. It kind of looks like a potato slip if you've ever planted potatoes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's really not that big of a deal if you do, but you plant these in the ground, but they were so cheap. And so I'm like, why not? The latest they say in the Midwest you should really start growing those is mid-June. Well, we're a little after mid-June, but I'm still going to try. We had pretty nice weather until late last year or later last fall. So we're just going to try it out, see how it goes. But everything is growing so well when it comes to my flowers. So that has been like my happy little bubble. It's been a lot of work. I also this last week, this is not to be so Debbie Downerish. I hope you're seeing the optimism that I have here, but I also was lifting last week and injured my back slightly. It's nothing like at all when I had that initial injury. And I'm able to mask it pretty well, I would say, because I lived with chronic pain for about 2 years before it really got better. And so for me, it's just frustrating because I want to go outside and do all these things. And I know I need to rest, but I'm not great at resting. And when I know I need to go pull weeds and everything else out there, it's just, it's a frustrating kind of time to not feel physically able to go out and do that. So we'll see how I'm feeling, how I'm trying to kind of recover, because I did post a video about this on Instagram where I asked for your input if you'd like to know how I'm working on healing this injury, or at least like kind of managing the pain. The first thing I've done is I made, and this will sound funny if you are very medically minded, I didn't take any medications. I don't take any medications, no painkillers, nothing. And so for me, my first approach is food. I always say food is number one. And so what can I do with food to help heal my body, or at least help manage the pain that I'm experiencing? And it's not horrible. It just is really making me reflect on those years when I felt like this all the time. And I don't know how I wasn't just like a depressed ball of mush, because it's so frustrating and it's debilitating. And if you've ever struggled with pain or musculoskeletal pain, you would know, like when you can't do anything about it, or when the remedies you maybe know aren't working, it's frustrating. And for me, I talked about last week how God is really teaching me that I can't have control. I have to give up control. And that's something I'm learning. And I think sometimes, not that the Lord intentionally plans to hurt us, but I think he, things occur and it's just kind of a sign like, hey, I told you so. Like, you're still trying to do way too much, and I told you so. Like, and the Lord would never, ever say that. Like, he so full of love and so full of grace. But in my mind, I'm like, if I was him, that's what I'd be telling me, because yeah, I do need to give up control. But also with like the just being gentler on your body and resting, like that's another area, like I need to tap into it. And so I'm like, now I'm kind of forced to have to rest, or there's things that I want to go do that I can't do, or they don't feel comfortable if I do them. But all of that to say, there are a few things that I have been doing. The first one is I created an anti-inflammatory juice blend for joint and musculoskeletal inflammation. And I'm just going to kind of read the post just because I think it'll be a lot smoother if I do it that way, to kind of explain why I added the ingredients I did. Okay, so I did 2 cups of pitted cherries. So cherries are high in antioxidants, so they're going to protect your cells while they work to heal that affected area of inflammation. So for me, that low back. Okay, I also did 1 full pineapple, and for that I did pineapple because it is high in bromelain, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and that is a digestive enzyme. And this is something I've actually just recently learned, but again, like I said, food is always that first focus. When I see an injury or an ailment, I'm like, okay, what can I add food-wise to help protect this area? So that's going to aid your body in creating substances to help fight pain and swelling. It's also really high in vitamin C, which is really great for decreasing inflammation in the body as well. And what's really interesting with pineapple is very acidic. So for people that have acid reflux, well, I don't really believe there is such thing as acid reflux. I think it has 100% to do with your diet and what you're consuming, or if you see acid reflux in infants, maybe what the mother is consuming in breast milk or the type of formula they're using. That's a whole nother tangent I'm not going to get on. But, and that's not to shame anyone or make anybody feel bad if you or anybody around you or your kids have experienced acid reflux, but these highly acidic foods, I noticed that they're actually really not negative for your system if you have reflux. It's just the quality of food you're consuming. And so if you're somebody's like, ooh, yeah, I can't do pineapple, I notice I had, like, it burns my throat, or I have reflux afterwards, I encourage you just to look at what you're consuming, kind of jot that down and see, okay, well, we don't want to make this to help with your musculoskeletal inflammation, but at the same, if you're going to notice, then you have digestive inflammation. So there's a lot that goes into foods that are maybe highly acidic. Sometimes they don't react well with people, but it was really interesting to learn about that digestive enzyme, that bromelain. And then I did 1/2 cup of ginger root. Ginger root is incredible. Ginger root and turmeric are the 2 best herbs you can have if you are struggling with inflammation. Ginger in itself contains over 40 antioxidants. And then it also has the compound 6-gingerol and 6-shagol. Shogol. I need to go to like what is it called? Like a phonetics class for not phonetics. See, I'm pronouncing that wrong too. Like a class where you learn how to read words. My problem is I'm always talking so fast that I don't even think twice about it. And when you get into medical terminology, or herbal phrases or words, it just becomes a lot. But anyway, so those 2 compounds also will stop your body or kind of halt that white blood cell activity, which that's going to occur when your body is experiencing high amounts of inflammation. So that's really cool. That's kind of the scientific way that ginger is working. I am such a geek, but I love to know what is actually happening in the body. If somebody was going to talk to me and they're like, yeah, ginger and turmeric are really good for inflammation, my immediate question is why? What does it do? Do you actually know the compounds in both of those products to help decrease inflammation? And I'm not going to claim to know that for every single food, but there are a lot of foods where I'm like, no, I actually know the reaction that's happening in your body from consuming that food. And that just really makes things make sense, right? I'm so passionate about just learning. And so, yeah, that's kind of that scientific background on that one, very low level, but still I think it's helpful. And then I did sea salt because there's 60 naturally occurring minerals. I use Redmond sea salt. I add a pinch of that to every glass of water I fill up at my house because it's accessible to me. And it just adds all of those minerals back in because I want my body to be hydrated while it's healing. And then I also do coconut water. So that has polyphenols, which can help with blood circulation. And that also then it offsets oxidative stress. So the stress that's happening on your body, it can offset that by having those polyphenols in your system. Okay. And then I did MCT oil. And so that's high in omega-9 and omega-3 fatty acids, which if you know about healthy fats, I talk about that in the Core 4 method episode. Those are great for that joint and musculoskeletal support. It can strengthen the tissue, muscle tissue, or actually provide that extra cushion around your joints. So yeah, that's kind of a long-winded way of saying that's why I made that juice blend. I made enough to last me about 4 to 5 days. So I've been having that every day. Every day for the last 4 to 5-ish days. I'm probably going to need to make another batch once we get more pineapple, just because it also tastes delicious. I would drink it even if I wasn't experiencing inflammation. But then I also made a cream. I use the Young Living essential oils. I don't sell Young Living. I don't get any kickback from you buying them, but I will say that's my favorite company to get them from. I put Valor, peppermint, and lavender together. Lavender is very soothing, can be great for that nervous system, kind of calming the stress in your body. Valor is known to decrease inflammation or decrease pain in certain areas, and peppermint is cooling. So peppermint is going to help soothe. So I think it was about 3 tablespoons of coconut oil, melted that down, and then did 15 drops, which is a lot, but I did 15 drops of each in that coconut oil, and then I just set it out on the counter to let it harden, and I've been using that on my back every day. Also, other remedies is just taking a warm shower or getting into a hot tub. I notice after a warm shower, my muscles are just relaxed and it helps me fall asleep at night because I'm not uncomfortable then. I have never, kind of coming back to the oil thing, I've never been very passionate about oils. I understand for some people, they're miracles, they're miracle workers. For me, I'm yeah, essential oils just they're great and they can work for, I think, definitely calming. But with pain, I've always kind of questioned it. But I have noticed after I shower, when I put that on that affected area, so my low back, I've actually been feeling a lot better, and it helps, again, soothe that area. So yeah, that's about it outside of resting, which more so just sleeping a little bit more if I need to. In the beginning of my weeks, it's hard to sleep in because I'm leading exercise class at 5:45 in the morning on Mondays and Wednesdays. But even today, slept until about 7, and then I'll plan on sleeping in to about 7, which for some people that might not be sleeping in. But for me, that definitely feels like it, especially because the sun is up so early. So yeah, that is kind of how I'm approaching this. I've kind of been forced to revert back to the mindset I had when I was trying to help support my body when I was struggling with that inflammation of my low back. Food primarily is going to be your number one focus. Also with not overdoing it when it comes to exercise or resting when your body needs it. But that's pretty foundational, and that's stuff that I work on the foundations with clients. So if you're oh, I don't even know if I've got that foundation down, then that's something that maybe we need to look at. But on top of the foundational components of healing, then those are kind of the 3 methods I've been using. Okay, so outside of that, let's jump into how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit. So how I'm nourishing my mind, I actually have started learning again. I am starting the process of being able to read functional labs. And this is going to be something that I cannot wait to expand and add with clients because it'll just be so beneficial for finding the root cause. I'm very much a root cause approach type of coach, but it's hard when you're using a questionnaire to find the root cause versus when you're able to read labs and give information to where, even the inflammation markers in their blood or what areas we would recommend maybe catering to first. I think it's going to be huge. And so that's something I hesitate sharing because I've only really shared it with people close to me that I'm going through that process. But I'm really, really excited. And I notice every time I start learning, I just feel rejuvenated. And I feel so much better when I'm actually just like immersing myself in new curriculum. So that's a challenge. It's not going to be easy, but it's a challenge. And I'm really, really excited about that. And I feel like that's just been so good for me. Every time I notice like I feel sluggish or I'm in like a lull season of life, I know it's because I'm not curious and because I'm not learning. So for me, that's like the best way to get out of any slump. How I'm nourishing my body. I've told you I started that new exercise program, and so I'm really trying to implement that smartly. That's actually how I initially injured my back. So I'm really having to modify, which is a challenge, but I also really enjoy lifting heavy and feeling strong. And then how I'm nourishing my spirit would be spending time with my family. This last week, we went to my grandma and grandpa's house. We picked cherries off of her cherry tree, went out to the pond, and my grandpa loves feeding fish, and so he fed them on the dock. We used the net, my brother and I, to catch some little fish right off the dock. It was just a very wholesome day. We had lunch with them and just spending time. We also, on the other side, on Sundays, my family has started playing pickleball together, which is pretty fresh. We've just done that for the last couple of weeks, but it's my parents, Nate, my husband, and I. And then this last week, Trev and his girlfriend joined us, and we played pickleball against each other for about an hour and a half. And I had no idea it was so fun. So I feel like that's just been the best. Oh, it's just been so good for my soul and my spirit to spend time with family. And especially in these warmer months when everybody's schedules slow down just a little bit, it's nice just to reconnect with them. So, all right, what do you say we jump into the bulk of today's episode, talking about food, seasonal eating, and also you're going to leave with those 5 recipes. So with seasonal eating, I'll just tell you my own experiences with it because I think most people might relate to that. So if we think about winter, I notice that I really crave warming foods. So foods that are cooked, foods that are warm, those soups, stews, casseroles, anything very hearty and warm. And I actually notice in the winter months, I'm actually hungrier. And I think the reason for this is if we think historically, think back to like the generations before us, in the winter, they didn't have a heater. So they had a wood burning stove, most likely, or a fire. And so in the winter, you naturally are probably going to put on more weight because you're less active outside, but also still need to eat, right? And so eating those warm foods, maybe foods that you've had in storage that you can warm up. So then when you get into spring, I notice that's when I kind of still like those warmer meals, but also those colder meals start to sound more appealing. I tend to start eating maybe a little bit less. And honestly, the amount of food that I'm consuming, that's going to be very different person to person. I'm speaking obviously from my own experience, but in spring, I start to become more active, but still just like, I go from the winter where I'm really hungry a lot, which seems kind of opposite, right? Because I'm probably a little less active. Spring comes around and I just want fresh food. So think about that seasonal eating. I can also link some seasonal produce links in the caption of or the description of today's episode so you can see what fruits are in season when, fruits and vegetables. But I start getting back into eating more of those raw fruits and vegetables. Then summer comes and honestly, I have no appetite in summer. I'm sweating a lot, I'm outside a lot, and I feel like when your body's dehydrated, you just feel kind of ill. So I've really been prioritizing my water intake with either a pinch of sea salt or an electrolyte packet in the morning because that's been really helpful for me not to feel dehydrated when I'm outside in these warmer months. But eating warm food sounds awful. And my body honestly responds a lot better to warm food, but in the summertime, I want raw, fresh food that I've probably grown in my garden, things that are just easy to grab and go, which is the recipes I'm going to give you. And then we get into fall, and then it's like, again, that transition back into those warming foods, less raw foods. And I think if you experience the seasons based off of the temperature outside, in the winter, your body is typically going to digest warm food better. You're burning less energy, and so you need foods that are easy to digest. Spring and summer, you're probably a little bit more active, if not a lot more active. For me, summer, I'm very active, pulling weeds, getting outside, taking care of animals, all the things. So I know that I can do raw foods because my body's producing a lot of energy. Even though I'm not necessarily hungry all the time, it does digest better when I have those raw fruits and vegetables, and then fall go back into those warmer foods as it gets cooler outside. So that's kind of the seasonal way of eating. If you're in an area where you have one season and it's mostly just warm or pretty warm outside, then for you, maybe having raw fruits and vegetables year round works. That's where I would just go back to eating fruits and vegetables that are in season, and also paying attention to how your body is digesting and absorbing that food. Okay, so if you notice you have raw fruits and vegetables, you have an upset stomach, have to rush to the bathroom, that is when, okay, we need to be switching to those warm foods, so cooked foods, versus if you are, honestly, I feel like nobody really has issues with warm foods. Those, unless everything is like going straight through you, maybe raw foods that are a little bit higher in that fiber and water content would be helpful. Again, that water content piece is huge here. With raw fruits and vegetables, still contains most of its water. So you're going to notice if you are like craving food throughout the whole day, you're probably dehydrated. And the reason you're craving raw fruits and vegetables is because your body needs extra water. So just ways to pay attention, or I guess methods to pay attention to see how your body's responding. But okay, let's jump into the recipes, because this is going to be kind of a quick rapid fire. Quick is kind of a loose term for me because usually none of these episodes are quick. But the first one is apple nachos, which that I don't like the name nachos with that, but really what you're going to do is on a plate, you're going to dice up an apple. You're going to do a drizzle of peanut butter, a drizzle of raw honey, some flaky sea salt, and some cinnamon on top. That is a great snack to have in the afternoon. You're getting most of the core four. You've got the fat and the protein from the peanut butter. Sometimes if I'm noticing I need more protein, because that's not going to be a lot, I will mix in some Greek yogurt with the peanut butter, which is actually probably what I'd recommend. Mix in like a fourth a cup of Greek yogurt, that peanut butter, whipped, it's kind of a whipped peanut butter then, drizzle that on top, some raw honey, cinnamon, and salt. Delicious, easy snack for you to have, also refreshing as well. The second one is going to be a protein shake, but we're making the substitution with Greek yogurt instead of protein powder. So I'm really trying to get a lot of my protein intake day to day from whole foods. If you're interested in knowing how much protein your body needs, I would encourage you to schedule a discovery call where we can talk about what maybe you're lacking and what I would recommend. But with that protein intake, most of the time, we're getting significantly under that. So what I have done then is using the whole foods rather than protein powder, because that makes my stomach just not ever feel very great. I will do a fourth a cup or half a cup of Greek yogurt. It's bananas, peanut butter, spinach, about a cup of spinach, ice, and then I will do water as the base to help blend it up. If you notice it's not super sweet and you've got more of a sweet tooth, I would add in either some maple syrup, honey, or date syrup. That's going to be a great way to sweeten it up. But again, using that Greek yogurt as a substitution, this is the one protein shake I make. The reason that I love this is because you're getting all the components. You've got the core four. Let me just briefly go over that. So core four, your protein, Greek yogurt, your healthy fat, the peanut butter, your fiber in the form of a fruit or vegetable is going to be the bananas or the spinach. And then you've got ice and water, which are just basic. With that carbohydrate, right? The spinach and the banana would also be a carb. If you wanted to add in a starchy carb, and if this all seems very overwhelming when I talk about the core four, go back and listen to that series because I deep dive into what this really means. But with the core four, adding that granola on top would give you the starchy carb. That way you're for sure getting all four. If you notice you feel bloated after having a protein shake, I would take a look at your protein powder, and I would also take a look at if you've added enough fat. I used to really shy away from adding peanut butter into my protein shakes because I was so afraid of peanut butter and I thought that was the reason I was gaining weight and yada yada. I had a horrible relationship with it until I realized, okay, Bailey, you're bloated because in your coffee you've got spinach, one cup of spinach, half a banana, water, and protein powder. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason you don't feel good. You've got no fat and you're like under making this protein shake. If you're making a protein shake, like make it something in bulk. I don't typically recommend using a protein shake as a meal substitute, but if you're having a Core 4 balanced protein shake, that would be fine. In these warmer months, I've noticed I've done that a couple times just because I don't feel like chewing food. And that might sound so ridiculous, but like I truly, like my body just doesn't want to. Like I have a hard time being disciplined in eating those 3 meals a day in the summer. I just do. And maybe for you that's not the case, and that's awesome. I don't think that's something I would encourage, is making it a struggle to eat 3 meals. I still do, but my portions look a lot different. Still always getting Core 4, just smaller portions. Okay, then the last 3 are savory dishes. So the third one is going to be spring rolls. I really, really love this recipe. It's so easy, and if you've seen like those rice paper wraps, they're usually in like the Asian section at the grocery store. You soak that wrap in water, it'll tell you on the package, and then you can fill that wrap with anything. So I will usually do cucumber, avocado, carrots. All of these are raw, not cooked. And then maybe some cooked chicken breast, or even deli meat is really nice, like a deli turkey I'll put in there. You fold it up, you wrap it up. Sometimes I will air fry it then for about 5 minutes just to get like that crispy outside, but you don't have to. And then I'll make a homemade Thai dressing. So it's truly water, peanut butter, soy sauce, a dash of maple syrup, and some sesame seeds. Super, super easy. And that recipe is one that is so easy to make, especially for lunch. You could also pack it if you're going to work or you've got class or something like that. Easy to take with you. Takes barely any time to put that together. Okay, the fourth one is a caprese salad with grilled chicken. So I've been doing a deconstructed caprese salad. So that's usually where you've got like the mozzarella, the tomato, the basil, and then you do a drizzle of the balsamic reduction. What I do is I got fresh kale and spinach from my garden and arugula, and I chopped that all up and put it in a bowl. I did a huge clump of basil, chopped that up, put that in that bowl, kind of mixed it together. And then I got little grape tomatoes and I diced them in half. And then I got a raw mozzarella cheese. If you're not lactose intolerant, you could definitely just do like a soft mozzarella cheese. For me, I did a hard mozzarella that was raw and diced that up, put that on the salad, and then I did that balsamic reduction on top. And it was delicious. I actually recently posted a photo of it on Instagram. If you follow me over there, you'll see the first photo is that salad. So easy, but I would recommend that can either be a great side dish, but if you're going to be having that as your main meal, I would do some grilled chicken on top. So a full grilled chicken breast on top would be probably ideal. You could also do breaded chicken. I just feel like grilled chicken in the summer just tastes way, way better. All right, wrapping this up with our 5th recipe, that is going to be a board lunch. This is something I think is really fun. I've seen people also do it in muffin tins when they've got kids, but in either each section of the muffin tin, you do a different snack. So you could do, some carrots on the bottom, do hummus, carrots. You could do some cucumbers with ranch on the bottom. You could do some like Cool Whip, coconut Cool Whip or coconut whip on the bottom, do some strawberries. You could do some crackers, some cubed cheese, some sliced deli ham, some sliced chomp sticks. Like if you are doing it more for a family, I would just add some different combinations. If you're doing it for yourself, I think it's really fun to get like a smaller charcuterie board and just do that. That doesn't mean you're not eating enough or eating really small portions. You're still getting the Core 4. So if I was going to make that, I would probably do some raw sliced cheese. I would do some rolled deli ham, and I would do a chomp stick that I would slice up, or some sort of sausage. I would do a Cool Whip, coconut Cool Whip with some strawberries in it as my sweet for the dessert. And then for more of like the veggie side, I would dice up some carrots, some cucumbers, maybe some baby tomatoes or grape tomatoes, and then have like a homemade hummus on the side. That is something. Oh, and then I would add like cashews or some sort of trail mix to it as well to get that fat component. You can really have so much variety here. Just remember I would say like do one vegetable, or you can do obviously more, but to really simplify it, do one vegetable in a dip, one fruit, option to add a dip, 2 sources of protein, 1 source of fat. So for that, it would be like the cheese would be a protein and a fat. And then I would say the hummus would be that fat. Okay. So there's just ways for you to mix and match. I know that's not a super specific example, but I think you could have a lot of fun with it. Just make it that variety. Also look up online at, I think it'd be like a muffin tin charcuterie board. You'll probably get a lot of more unique and fun ideas on there if you're thinking about doing this with your family. But I've noticed I'm somebody who really likes to snack. Like I think for supper, a big meal, that's kind of where I value that. Like I value a solid, warm, delicious meal for supper. For lunch, in all honesty, if I wasn't so disciplined in eating because I know my body needs the extra fuel, I would just kind of breeze past lunch. But adding in more snacky lunch has worked really well for me, and having a really solid breakfast. So I always do a bigger breakfast. I do my coffee, which is loaded with healthy fats and protein. And then I do a small lunch, and then a not larger supper, but still like a balanced and very warming supper. All right. So I hope that those examples gave you some inspiration. I had somebody mention that they would like some ideas this summer for lunches because they've noticed it's really hard to be disciplined in eating. When you get outside, you get in the sun, your body just doesn't, I don't know. And I really should have done more research on what's going on. And if you know, please let me know. But like my body just does not want food as much as it does in those colder months. Okay, so make sure you're drinking your water. Always that water with electrolytes to start your day is going to be a lot. I would say it's going to be super helpful for you if you notice you're a snacker throughout the day. That has been a really positive shift in my own life. And also just prioritizing the core 4, but recognizing it doesn't need to be a full-blown meal. You can make the core 4 very small, very snacky. It's actually something I integrated with a client. My last round that I did Nourish to Flourish was we focused on doing a more snacky lunch, still high in protein, still got all those 4 components, but it just wasn't so heavy, and it left you feeling like you had energy to get outside. And I think that's the piece of it too. Having a big meal, I don't want to have a big meal at lunch because I know, okay, I'm not going to be motivated to go back outside if I like want to take a nap. So adding in that lighter lunch, something your body can digest pretty quickly, has all those 4 components to aid in healthy digestion, so you can get back outside, get back into whatever activity that you are doing. All right. So I hope that was helpful. Let's go ahead and close this episode in prayer. So dear Lord, thank you so much for the change in seasons and just what you've provided for us in each season. I ask for safety and just guidance to whoever's listening to this episode, and that they just feel so supported by you and supported by the people around them and in their community. I just ask that you continue to guide them along in the unique purpose that you've set for them, and that they continue to just approach each day as a new opportunity to learn and absorb information and put it into practice, and that they just have the tools and the people around them to help them feel less alone in this journey. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So if you're interested in following along with my life outside of the podcast, you can find me at Nourish with Bailey on Instagram, TikTok, Lemonade, YouTube, almost anywhere. And if you can't find me at that, you can find me at Bailey Seaton on Facebook. Otherwise, my email is in the description of today's episode. So if you're interested in either being a guest, you have a guest you'd like to hear on the podcast, or if you would like to get more information about coaching and what I do with clients, I would love to connect with you that way. Otherwise, I will talk to you again next Wednesday. Bye.